Hey, hello, and welcome to this episode of Learn Everyday English, your roadway to English proficiency. Again, I'm on my comfy couch in my go-to position, and I hope you enjoyed those episodes. If I'll put them in this order, but I just finished recording some episodes about common everyday English idioms and expressions. I don't know if I'm going to put those up, upload those before this video, or maybe I'll do it after, so we'll see. But I got something interesting today I'm going to talk about, kind of open up a little bit more about myself. And but before I get into that and tell you a little bit more about that, you know, there's 3 things you can do for me. Hey, like the video, subscribe to the channel. 3, tell your friends about it so that they can benefit from these videos too. Hey, just like you. Well, we get this kind of local magazine every month. I can't remember the name of it. But usually in this magazine, they kind of interview a person, and they have, what is it, like 20 questions they ask a person about themselves. And it's very interesting to read the questions and to read the answers that the person gives. It's kind of like a window into their soul, we could say. But it's interesting to see how their answers kind of may differ from your answers, or differ from my answers, or means how they're different. So everybody's different, right? But I thought, hey, I took a copy of the questions on my phone. I have them here on my iPad, and I thought, that would make some good questions to ask guests on the show here on the channel. But I thought, well, it would be also interesting for me to try to answer these questions, because I thought these are some very good and very interesting questions. And I share a little bit more with you about myself, and you can try to play along and answer these questions yourself. Say, if somebody were to ask you these questions in English, how would you respond or answer in English? So that'd be good practice for you, a practice session, like an interview session for you in English. But I'm going to just jump right into these 20 questions and give you my answers to these questions. So let's go. The first question says, what school did you attend? What school did you attend? Well, my dad was in the Army, so we moved around a little bit. I lived in Louisiana, then we moved to Nevada for 4 or 5 years, and we moved to Maryland for about 4 or 5 years, moved back to Louisiana, and then my dad retired, and then we moved to Houston. So I'll say when my dad retired from the Army, we moved to Houston in the early 1970s, and I went to Ed White Elementary School. I went to Sharpstown Middle School. High school, I went to a kind of a Catholic school called Straight Jesuit College Preparatory School, and then for college I went to the University of Houston. The second question is, what is your favorite movie? What is your favorite movie? I had to kind of think about this, because I don't watch, say, a lot of movies, or go out to the movies or out to the movie theater, and really don't watch as many movies as most people. But I have to say, probably my favorite movie is a series of movies, and it's the movies of the Lord of the Rings movies, the Lord of the Rings series. I think I have to say that's my favorite movie or movies, because I read those books when I was a teenager, and they kind of made a lasting impression on me. I really like to read fantasy type books or novels when I was a teenager. Little science fiction too, so that stuck with me, and when the movies came out, I really just loved it. So I would have to say the Lord of the Rings. Have you watched the Lord of the Rings, the movies, in your country, in your language? Hey, let me know in the comments below. The third question is, how did you make your first dollar? How did you make your first dollar? Well, I'd have to say when I went to high school at Straight Jesuit, I worked in the bookstore because, it's a private Catholic school, so it wasn't free. My family, we didn't have, say, a whole lot of money. My twin brother and I were going there at the same time. We did get some financial aid or financial assistance, but I had to work in the school bookstore to kind of help offset some of the cost to attend the school. So although I didn't actually get any money physically in my hand, all the money that I made working at the bookstore went to help pay for the tuition to go to high school. I guess that was the how I made my first dollar, or my first buck. If you remember the video about English expressions, and here in the U.S., instead of saying dollar a lot, people will say buck, B-U-C-K, buck. So how did you make your first buck or your first dollar? The fourth question is a book that made a lasting impression on you. The book that made a lasting impression on you. I don't want to be cliche, kind of like the normal thing, maybe say the Bible. But I have to say there's a book called The Search for Significance. It's a kind of religious book, but it's called The Search for Significance. And it says that everybody really wants to be significant in life. We want people to look at us and say, hey, he's significant. He matters. You may not be rich or famous, but you want to be significant, in quotes, however you define significant. But a lot of times we look for approval from people, right? From family, from friends, from coworkers. We want to say look good in their eyes. And we put a lot of stress on ourselves to try to look good in other people's eyes. And growing up, I used to worry a lot about doing well in school, getting good grades. And when I went to college, I would get very anxious. Not have anxiety per se where I couldn't sleep, but I would just feel real nervous. And I said, this is not good. And so I read this book, and this book said, well, from a religious standpoint, that the way I am normally and naturally is totally acceptable and pleasing to God. And I don't need to be trying to find approval or acceptance in other people or by other people. And I really took that to heart. Took that to heart means that I took it seriously. And I realized that's right. Why am I so worried about doing well in school? Why am I so worried about trying to be perceived as being this smart person by other people in other people's eyes, and looking a certain way for people to accept me? And this realization, this knowledge was very freeing. It was opened my mind, and it totally changed my life immediately. I stopped really worrying a lot about getting good grades. I said, well, I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to prepare myself the best I can, and whatever will happen. And that stayed with me my whole life. And that was a book that really was a turning point and really made a lasting impression on me. The fifth question was the last thing you binge watched. To binge watch is like to watch something on TV a lot, like say there are a lot of episodes or a series, and you just stay there and watch 10, 20 episodes all at one time, or one right after the other. You're binging. You're watching them on a binge. And I have to say the last thing I binge watched was a series in Spanish called La Esclava Blanca on Netflix. And I was watching this series to try to, help learn Spanish. And it was a series from Colombia. And I would watch it, listen to it in Spanish, but have the Spanish subtitles. And it was a very long series, very interesting, very good. I highly recommend it. But it had like 60 episodes. And I was watching this off and on for like a year. And finally, the last maybe 10 or 12 episodes, I was like, well, I've been watching this series for too long. I just need to finish it. So I think over the period of 2 days, I watch the last 10 to 12 episodes, like 5 to 6 episodes a day. And that's kind of the most I will binge watch. But that's the last movie or thing I binged watched on TV was the series La Esclava Blanca from Colombia. La Esclava Blanca means the white slave. The sixth question, what do you listen to riding down the road in your car? What will people find you listening to? And I have to say, either there's two main things you'll find me listening to podcasts, a lot of times podcasts in Spanish to help practice my listening comprehension, or podcasts about, say, photography, topics like that. And sometimes you also hear me listening to Spanish radio station, music station, to kind of help practice my Spanish. So those are the things that you will find me listening to as I'm riding down or driving down the road. So what do you listen to in your car while you're driving or riding down the road? See, the next question is, what is your favorite dish or what is your favorite food? Some of you know I have a very limited diet due to this health problem I have, so there's a lot of things I can't eat. So I have to say my favorite dish would probably be baked chicken. And I eat that pretty much every day, but I really like chicken and I like to put it in the oven, or say roasted chicken or baked chicken is my favorite dish that you will find me eating all the time. The eighth question is, what is your go-to barista order? Go-to barista is the person, say, that works at a coffee shop that makes your lattes, mochas, coffee. And I would have to say I don't have a go-to barista order because I don't drink coffee or anything like that because I can't really drink that. I don't like the taste of coffee. I can't drink or eat milk products, so I don't say that question. I can't answer that question. Number 9, what is your favorite childhood memory? Your favorite childhood memory? I have to say my favorite childhood memory is my going to Louisiana. I grew up, from 6th grade living here in Houston, but my parents are from Louisiana, so we would go there and visit often, 3-4 times a year, maybe 5. And then during the summer, my brother and I would spend at least 2 months with my aunt and grandmother in Louisiana, my father's mother and sister. But then my mom grew up on a farm outside in Louisiana, so we would go there. I say that was my best memory because in the farm they had a lot of animals. They had pigs and chickens and geese and cows, and my grandfather would go feed the pigs. We say slop the hogs, and help him do that. We would feed the chicken with kernels of corn. We'd take the corn from the field, run it through this machine that will remove the kernels, and then we would feed the chickens and other animals, and we could just kind of go out there and play. We had some BB rifles, rifles that shot these small round metal balls. We would go out and shoot, glass bottles and cans, and it was just very fun and freeing just to go out and play outside on the farm. I have to say that's my favorite childhood memory. Number 10, something that would surprise us about you. Something that would surprise us about you. I'd have to say maybe there's 2 things that would surprise you about me. One, I studied Tai Chi and Kung Fu, mainly Tai Chi I've been practicing Tai Chi, which is a Chinese kind of exercise and also a martial art. And I started studying that when I was 30, and I'm 60, so I've been doing Tai Chi for 30 years. I taught in Houston at the school I went to and studied at. I taught Tai Chi here after I retired at the library, at the YMCA, at a gym, and at a church before COVID. Then I stopped doing that. And also practiced Kung Fu, Shaolin Kung Fu, for many years. And the second thing you might find interesting about me is that I played the drums. I'll put a picture of it in a Chinese lion dance group called Lee's Golden Dragon in Houston for probably about 20 years. and also did the lion, a little bit the tail of the lion, but mainly I played the drums and then also helped out play the instruments. So that was a very good and interesting experience for me. The 11th question, what would we find you doing on your day off? Well, I'm lucky and blessed. Like I've told you, I was able to retire in 2015, so almost 8 years ago. So I don't work, I'm retired. I do volunteer work. I was teaching Tai Chi. I help the elderly people, the senior center, delivering meals to elderly people. I'm a member of a djembe drum ensemble group. We practice twice a month and perform all over Houston. I like to stay busy. I'm learning to play the Irish tin whistle or penny whistle. I do photography, member of photography club and groups here, and also been studying Spanish. So on my day off, you'll find me doing a lot of things. Probably just studying Spanish is one. Every day I try to do that. Every day I try to walk around my neighborhood and that sort of thing. So usually I'd say studying Spanish and walking are the two things that I do every day. How would your perfect day begin? Well, I say I'd probably begin my days. I think what I like to do. I get up, I make breakfast, I sit down, I have my iPad, and I really enjoy this. I eat breakfast and I check my emails and also check my Facebook account. Then I also play Wordle, which is kind of a word game online, which is very interesting. I do that and look forward to that every morning. So I'd probably spend about an hour eating, checking email, playing Wordle, and other things on my iPad. So to me, that's kind of the best way to start the day for me. Let's see. How do you clear your mind after a bad day? How do you clear your mind after a bad day? Well, after a bad day, I like to say go walking around the neighborhood because here, it's very peaceful. It's very relaxing. It's in the middle of a lot of woods, a lot of trees. You can hear the birds chirping. Get out in nature and walk around, and also do some photography. It really helps me unwind because time just seems to fly by. It passes very quickly and it's very relaxing. So those are the two things I like to do to kind of unwind after clear my mind after having a bad day. And also, I'd have to say I like to pray. I pray, and that really helps to clear my mind up as well. But I normally don't have very many bad days, especially now that I've been retired. When I was working, I had quite a few bad days because my job was very stressful. But right now, I'm blessed. I don't really have to deal with that type of situation very often. One thing that you're epically bad at, or really very bad at, I had to think about that because, nobody's perfect. We all have our imperfections and flaws. But I'll say this thing, which may be kind of a weird answer, but something that I was never good at is like drinking alcohol. A lot of my dad liked to drink, alcohol and beer, and I have a lot of friends. Like a lot of friends I know, they drink beer and they just drink beer one after the other, and I never could drink. I never liked the taste of alcohol. And I remember my grandmother when I was, maybe 15, 16, she said, hey, why don't you want a beer? I have a little bit of taste of beer. And I remember I drank like 2 sips of beer, and I was just, burping or belching a whole lot right after that. So I think my body, for some reason, just wasn't used to or couldn't handle the alcohol or the beer, and I just didn't like the taste. And I would ask myself, how can people just drink like beer after beer after beer? Don't they get tired of it? Like I can't even drink or couldn't drink like soda, like a Coke, like 5, 6, 10 Cokes. After 1 or 2, I was tired of it. It was too sweet. So I could never drink. So if you need a drinking buddy or a drinking pal, don't ask me or don't look at me because I just can't drink. I'm epically bad at drinking alcohol. The next thing, what is a bucket list item you're most glad you've done? A bucket list item is something that you have on a list that you want to accomplish or you want to do in your life, say before you die. So this question is, what is one thing that you've done that's on your bucket list? I'd say one of the bucket list items that I had was to go to Mexico, but especially San Miguel de Allende. I heard so much about it. It's a very beautiful place. My Spanish teacher here in town would go there once or twice a year. She would tell us all about it. Other people would tell me about it. So last year in July, we went to Mexico City and took a bus to San Miguel de Allende, and we spent about 2-3 days there, and I really loved it. I really want to go back. We didn't spend enough time, but that's one of the things on my bucket list that I was able to do. The 16th question is, what is the top thing that is left on your bucket list, or the top thing that you need to do on your bucket list? And I would have to say the top thing, there are two things maybe. One is to go to Spain and Italy on my bucket list, but also I really want to live in a Spanish-speaking country for a period of time, like at least 2 or 3 months. So I have to say that's probably the top thing on my bucket list. So I'd really like to go to Mexico because Mexico is close. I like the Mexican language, or the Spanish that they speak in Mexico. And there's so many beautiful places in Mexico. Like I said, I'd like to go back to San Miguel de Allende, Guanajuato. That area, I could spend 2-3 weeks there and go to Oaxaca and other places, Merida, Yucatan. And so I'd like to spend at least 2 or 3 months living and kind of traveling around Mexico and also improving my Spanish. The 17th question, if you could live abroad, where would that be? So I guess I answered that question. I'd like to live in Mexico. But two, if I could live abroad, I think also parts of Colombia I've seen look interesting, like Manizales. Y also España. I think I would like to live in Spain for a while. Who do you admire and why? Who do you admire and why? Like, admire means who do you look up to or you think good about. And I have to say, I'm not going to again say the cliche thing like Jesus Christ is somebody I admire, but if somebody other than that, I have to say this is going to be an interesting answer for you. I have this health issue called gastroparesis, where the food in my stomach it doesn't move through the stomach fast enough, so it sits there, and we say it kind of starts to rot. It produces a lot of symptoms like gas, that type of thing. But my situation is not as bad as a lot of people that have this same issue. And I remember I met this young man. He was, I think, 18 or 19 on Facebook group, Gastroparesis Facebook group. He made a lasting impression on me because he had gastroparesis, but his situation was much worse than mine. His stomach wasn't working at all. He had a feeding tube, so he couldn't eat through his mouth. He had to eat through food that was put into his stomach through a tube. And also his colon really wasn't working very well, his small intestine. So he had a lot of different other health issues as well. He would say in and out of the hospital all the time. He'd have to go in the hospital for a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, come out. And he was in a wheelchair. He couldn't really walk. But his spirit was just amazing. He liked to do photography, and we had that kind of connection or bond. And I exchanged some messages with him on Facebook. But he was always, so upbeat. He was always kind of so happy, so encouraging, even though his health situation, his life situation was very bad, very poor, and he was so young to have to go through all these health challenges. But he actually encouraged me instead of me encouraging him. He ended up encouraging me and made me feel kind of better about my situation and not get, depressed about it. And then recently I read he posted that he was in the hospital again, but he and his family made the decision that he needed to go on hospice care, and they were going to bring him back to his house. And usually hospice care means that somebody is in the last stages of life and that they are near death, and they're just going to send them home, make them comfortable before they pass away. So it looks like that he may not have much longer to live, but he was still very positive and encouraging. He wasn't depressed or angry or bitter, and that really surprised me. It really made me feel sad to hear what was going on, but it was encouraging to me to see how such a young person with so many problems could stay so positive, have such a good outlook on life, and I think it's because of his faith as well. So this person's name was Brandon Kelledy, and he's a person that I really admire. This young man, I think he's 19 years old. I'm 60, but he really touched me in a very deep way. What's the best advice you've ever gotten or received? Well, I guess the best advice that I have gotten is from that book, The Search for Significance, which is just to accept myself as I am. I'm totally pleasing and acceptable as I am, and don't worry about what other people may think of you. And to me, that's the best advice I've ever gotten. And the last question is, what is the advice you would give to your younger self, or what would you tell yourself as a younger person? I would say, that's a good question. I would say the thing, again, don't worry about what other people think of you and try to impress or please other people. And also the thing is, be sure about people that you're going to get into a, say, romantic or relationship with, your girlfriend, or wife if you're a man. Be sure and don't jump into marriage quickly. Or I didn't really jump into marriage quickly, but think about it seriously, give it time, get to know the other person, because one of the worst things you can do is to be in a unhappy marriage. So, and don't think that you have to get married necessarily in life. People will pressure you. Don't think that you necessarily have to have children, because you don't have to. And don't really, just listen to people and try to please people all the time. Just do what you think is right. That's some very good advice. People are going to tell you their opinions, but ultimately you need to make the final decision and be confident in that you're the one that's going to make that final decision. So these I thought were very good questions, very interesting questions that make you think, or questions that make you go, So again, I think this will be a good exercise for you for English to practice. So go over these questions and act like somebody is interviewing you, or somebody's asking you these questions, and respond. How would you answer them in English? So that's a good test for you. So let me know if you're going to try that and take the test. If you did it, what did you think? Were you able to answer these questions about yourself in English? Hey, let me know in the comments below. So that'll do it. But remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about it. So that'll wrap up this episode of Learn Everyday English. We'll continue to bring you this content. The channel is growing. It's growing slowly but steadily, and I'm glad to see that. But again, like I said, I don't do this to try to become famous. I don't do this to try to make money. I just do this as a labor of love to help people, to help you, because I know what it's like to learn a foreign language, another language, and to find kind of good content, maybe content that suits you or fits you. And this channel may not be for everybody. People like to learn in different manners and different methods. I've received a lot of good comments, though. People say they really like this channel, the way I present the information. I go over words and phrases that we use here in the United States in English, and I kind of highlight those. It's just a little different way to do things, and I know I have my list of YouTube channels that I watch to learn and improve my Spanish, and they vary. They have different methods to help people learn Spanish. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll shut up for now. So have a good day, rest of the week, wherever you are. We'll talk to you later from Learn Everyday English. Hey, goodbye.